yeah, it's yeah, I think that was a great answer to a question that, and it's, we see it even in our business where we can, I mean, because we're always looking for new ways to get exposure and build a show, but we always have to be paying attention to our guests and and our audience, because you can have this great idea to showcase a technology, and if it doesn't fit in with what people can sort of engage with, you can end up running all over the place and wasting a lot of time. Is that the big as a challenge for a company, I mean, what is the major hurdle when you're getting? I mean, you went public, you're developing the technology, the different seasons, like you said, you have these short windows where you can actually test. I mean, what is the big challenge that sort of can the roadblocks that come up when you're trying to bring something like this into the industry?
Well, I'll compare it to a different industry. If you look at, whether it's mining, whether it's, automotive, whether it's any of these other industries, even, software and phone hardware, is these are not a seasonal business. And they can be testing all year long. You can do product cycle after product cycle in a short window, and you have access to the masses. And it's not what I would call a really capital intensive thing to get things out. So if you look at the decades following, really precluding the 50 years, is innovation was often designed by farmers out here. Is a farmer would come up with what we call the better mousetrap.
Mm.
And then eventually maybe they would get a meeting with a company like John Deere or Case IH or Agco, and that idea would develop into a product over a long period of time. But the issue with agriculture and ag technology is you got to think about this is you know just in Canada alone, like we Western Canada alone, we've got 90 million acres. So one is you have to be able to test in a wide variety of soils. So now
Yeah.
you've got limitations in just how do you get out and make sure your product works everywhere. So that's the first part of it, and then the cost of doing that and then you got to remember is you got to reset every 12 months. So if you miss a window, now you've incurred a whole nother 12 months of cost. So getting back to your question is capital. Agriculture has not been what I call really until recently I really call a high return business in ag technology. There was a lot of companies out here that went public. They made great claims. They said, "Oh, we've got millions of acres here," but they never were profitable. And now that's starting to change as both the investment side of things, investors look at saying, "Well, I think there is returns here," and then the farmers are actually looking at adopting the technology, which is the other thing is they're speeding up the adoption of technology as they look at more opportunities to increase their profit margins. So, one of the big barriers of entry in agriculture technology, other than on the data side, which is, yeah, that's a computer, that's a few sensors. If you were going to change things, it was a hugely capital intensive thing. And here's the thing is it wasn't what I call sexy industry. It wasn't something that, people said, oh, this is a blockchain thing, or this is a cannabis deal out there, or a mining deal in its day. Agriculture is always kind of that ugly cousin out there. But I think, as we look at people more and more paying attention to the transparency of where food is grown, do I have a local food supply? How is it grown? What about the farm it came from? Where did that beef come from? Where did that grain that made my bread come from? This is changing. So a lot of it's being consumer driven, and now the technology is helping tie the consumer back to the farmer on the ground. But again, the blockade for us, even in the early days, was this isn't something you go lightly into. It's not something you fund out of out of your $100,000 bank account or RSP. This isn't a big undertaking with a large team that you have to be in for the long haul in order to really reach the end of getting into the commercialization piece.
Let's talk about the team, Colin, because and when you as you're going through this interview, I'm thinking, man, I've done enough of the technology shows to know, and I get to have conversations sometimes with people off the air, so I know what they've been through to get it to commercialization. I mean, I'm sure there's been a season that you were supposed to test and it's been missed that year, so it got delayed a year. I mean, it must be, I'm going to make an assumption in my question. It must be a very positive team, but a very goal oriented team at the same time, which is a very hard group to put together, to be able to get something like this across the finish line. It really must be.
Yeah, I mean, and there's two forms of that. There's our board of directors, which does have a lot of our management team on it, with but some great contributors from around the industry and in the M&A space that keep us funding and also are getting us ready to be funded for our next steps in the company. But I'll kind of start with the management team. My background has been in in ag equipment, ag technology for the last 25 years. I grew up on a farm here in Saskatchewan, and that's been my driver is to really roll out innovative equipment to farmers as per their needs. So I've taken that role and to try to refine what our both our messages and making sure that we're aligned on the producer side, while getting the product ready. If you look at our CEO, our founder and CEO Graham Lefebvre, he's got amazing understanding of what we're trying to accomplish, what his dad actually started to accomplish here, and has been a master. And I've never seen anybody better here at keeping us funded through the sandbox stage, which is there's a
Mm,
lot of companies that don't get really the passes in the market, especially if you're publicly traded, for okay, when are you going to generate cash flow? When are you going to be into revenue? But he's been great, and if you look at every single placement that he's put out there, he's raised it above market and above our above market pricing in the market, which is tremendous. So he has a way when he sits down with those investors to say, hey, we have something more here. This isn't a flash in the pan. This is a sustainable thing. You
mm.
know, we believe we're a hugely undervalued company, and we just haven't had that reach yet to the investor market, and we're just at the commercialization stage. So he's been a huge partner for me. As I work on the operations, and he works on the marketing and the capital and the strategy side. So that's been great. Gary Anderson, who serves as our president, another huge asset. Gary was really the co-founder of a company called AGI, Ag Growth International. It started out as a $2 million business in Swift Current, Saskatchewan, and really for the next 20 years, they did about 25 mergers. They were essentially the fish swallowing the whale in what we call the grain handling business and the grain storage business. And Gary, when he retired as the CEO of Ag Growth International in 2016, that company was over $1 billion a year. So we look at people that are being veterans in the industry, veterans of knowing what it takes to take a company organically, that maybe see as the outlier, that how can that small fish really get out there. Both Gary and Graham and myself are on the board. We've got excellent outside advisors. Glenn Radcliffe, who's was a key agriculture equity guy with Raymond James. So again, we're positioning to tap those equity markets through there. We've got Bob Trugel, who is AMVAC, American Vanguard, huge role here in plant crop protection products, as well as just in ag technology. And the list goes on and on, including Steve Sommerfeld, who worked with Gary Anderson at Ag Growth International. Really was the money guy. I don't think there's a guy he doesn't know in the debt financing side related to agriculture, really in North America and even around the world. So we it's funny, people say, well, where did you get your team from? And the issue is well, this is this slow burn that we've talked about in agriculture. Is if we have a product we believe in, we know it's going to be really disruptive. It's amazing the talent that you can attract to help bring this on. And it started one person at the time. Graham often reminds me, hey, when it was just myself and my wife, and we had one employee, and I think there was a basketball net in the back of our Burnaby office, and a pallet jack. And it all started from somewhere. But we built the team up, and I came on as we saw. I had been a huge advocate. I'd worked for John Deere, worked for CNH Industrial, and I saw how slow true innovation moved in those companies to really change those two things, which is growing more crop or doing it at a lower cost. And it was key that you had to tie the capital to that innovation and people who believed in it. So we've added now operational staff. GGD is our vice president of operations and product development. Huge background in automotive lean manufacturing, agriculture lean manufacturing, and product development. Butch Sinclair, a veteran of Viterra, and he brings out really a whole new push on the customer experience. And we've titled his thing. He's not just the vice president of sales, but he's also the vice president of customer experience. So we're pushing out this end to end thing. Is we don't want to just sell a product. We want to change the way you know that this is looked at. We want it as an agronomic tool that people have a good customer experience with, and that's how we've developed our companies by keeping our eye on that ball of why are we doing this in the first place. So.